welcome back to the Charter Podcast, brought to you by St. Xavier University. My name is Ruthie Polinsky, and I am joined by my Charter pal, Alex Shapiro. Alex Shapiro, great to see you. Another interesting week at Hallis Hall. I guess I haven't exactly been on here to recap what happened on Sunday at Soldier Field. Obviously, there's been some fallout over the last couple of days, and we've learned more information. Or have we? Is, I guess, really the question. So I guess before we get into sort of turning the page, as they so do at Hallis Hall on Wednesdays, as they get ready for another tough test in the Minnesota Vikings who are coming to town, let's kind of go through, I guess, the last 48, 36 hours and just kind of what's been your interpretation of the reaction to the loss?
It's interesting. It's the second time in a month that, and this is something that kind of dawned on me in the last few days, that Matt Eberflus just does not seem to care very much for what he believes to be like meaningless yards that might be extremely meaningful. When given the chance to, say, hey, would you do something differently? Would you run another play? He's like, nah, we were inside our kick line. We're confident about Cairo. We don't want to risk the fumble. We don't want to risk going backwards because they're stacking the box. And it's understandable. On the surface, all of those things are understandable. We've seen the Bears go through the horrifying fumble in a key moment. The Bears have a major pre-snap penalty problem. That's something that really, I think, was hammered home upon the rewatch of that game. The pre-snap penalties remain a problem. So you could run into those things, and now all of a sudden you're talking about a 50-plus yard field goal instead of a 40-plus yard field goal. But it seems like, and this is something that we've talked about and others have talked about, it's not a unique idea. The Bears are playing to not lose rather than playing to win. It's a 46-yard field goal. Let's see if we can make it a 42-yard field goal. Make it that much easier. It's similar to that Commanders game where we just got to keep them out of the end zone. We're going to let the Commanders get the extra 15 yards or whatever in between, because all that matters is that we keep them out of the end zone. Meanwhile, we know the Commanders thought we were cooked until we got those 15 yards. It was the extra 15 yards before the Hail Mary that made the Hail Mary possible. So to me, that's just another exhibit of every yard really matters. And sometimes you got to keep playing aggressive, keep playing to win when you have a chance to win, instead of kind of turtling up and playing not to lose. So that was something that kind of hit me as I digested this game one more time over the past few days.
I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of battling with this a little bit. I understand the criticism of not getting closer for the field goal try. I understand why people are upset about that. But when you look at the history of the Chicago Bears as of late, they don't know how to win. So there's no history to tell you that things are going to go right. I think when you look at, perhaps if you were to get inside Matt Eberflus's head in that moment, he's like, we are in the kick line. We did it. We have a really accurate, consistent kicker who's getting paid a lot of money to make this kick. And we are going to win this game. I understand the criticism of you could have run another play. But as they weren't going to throw it there. So you're not going to take. Caleb Williams was sacked twice on that drive. 3rd and 19, don't forget.
Mm-hmm.
So Matt Eberflus is in prevent coaching, which I understand. But I also think that there was an element of, there were a lot of things that didn't go right. And it wasn't that you didn't run another play. You got to protect, right? On those, in that situation. And Green Bay, whether it was a penalty, a foul, we'll see what the league says, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. They're not going to call it on the last play of the game, as we saw, as there were also penalties on the Hail Mary, right? So you got into your kick line more than comfortable for your kicker, who, by the way, Ryan Poles paid 4 years, $15.5 million. Okay.
To defend Cairo Santos, he's earned every penny of that. Like, that block kick ain't on Cairo. Could he have elevated the ball a little bit more?
It's not on
maybe, but that ain't on Cairo. That's
who he is. He's not a high trajectory kicker. He's a low trajectory. Everyone knows it. It's the field goal in the first one was in the first quarter. I'm like, oh boy, that looks low. Like I sometimes I've noticed this, right? Like, this is not news that he's a low trajectory kicker. Right. So I think I'm just really battling with this. Like, everyone knew you should have run another play. Guess what? You hand it off to Roschon Johnson. He takes it around the side and he gets stuffed and you lose 2 yards on the play. Like, then what?
No, that's what I mean. I mentioned off that. That's why I mentioned that off the top. Like, it's reasonable. The explanation of not running a play is absolutely reasonable.
And what I'm trying to say here is that if Cairo Santos makes the kick and the Bears win the game, they beat Green Bay for the first time in 11 meetings, right? They're now 1-10 against Green Bay. Everyone's talking about Caleb Williams leading his team to a game-winning drive, and they're talking about Matt Eberflus out-coaching Matt LaFleur. But because of this one decision, it's like there's this pile on, and I get it, because it's not one decision. It's what's happened over the last 3 years. But I'm just sort of battling with this idea of, like, you know, this is who they are. They don't know how to win. Like, I actually think that they were put in position to win that game.
They were. And
they didn't, and the other team executed better on the last play of the game, and that's what it came down to. And that's how it's always going to come down when you're playing in these divisional games. So that's kind of where I'm sort of, and this is, sorry for yelling.
You're not
meaning to yell.
Maybe people outside in the newsroom.
And I'm not sitting here and trying to defend and go soft on this situation, but there were so many questionable coaching decisions in that game from Matt LaFleur, like not kicking the field goal and the weird challenge. Like, when you got the first down for Jordan Love, like, you don't have to give him the touchdown there. Like, you're going to need that timeout. Like, there were just so many weird things that happened in that game. And I think it's just so unfortunate, and it's so disappointing that that's how it ended. Because it really could have changed, I think, a lot of things for this team moving forward.
1,000%.
I don't know if the loss changes anything for where this team was a week ago, right? I think you saw some progress on offensively, and kudos to Thomas Brown, because that offense looked completely different, which we'll get into. But it's, you know, it's so disappointing, I think, as someone who covers the team, for fans, for the players, for the coaches. Like, that's one moment, right, that could have, if it would have gone differently. Like, Matt Eberflus is the smartest coach. He milked the clock perfectly. He milked it down. They got in field goal range. They kicked the field goal. They won the game as time expires. Like, Matt Eberflus, this could be a turning point for Matt Eberflus. So
the problem is, though, Ruthie, I think I agree with you. In a vacuum, if this was one time,
of course,
it's like, okay, it didn't work out.
Right.
But it's not one time, right? I mean, there is the Commanders game where they gave up the 15 yards that led to the Hail Mary. There is, decisions like giving Velus Jones a long rope and letting him continue to go out there. There's more of that. There's not vetoing the Doug Kramer handoff call, which he could have done. He could have gone on the headset and said, no, don't run that play.
And the record for Matt Eberflus in one score losses is it's damning. Like, it is what it is. It's not a good statistic for Matt Eberflus's, future. But if we look at this game in a vacuum, which I know it's not, that's, I think, why I'm battling with this, like, over the top criticism of just that, of not running another play. Now, I understand when you group that in with all the other one score losses and, the 1 in 68 million chance of all these games that he lost in the fourth quarter when he had a
Well, I think we need to throw win
chance to win
probability
it.
out the window. I have never liked win probability.
Yeah, it's
NFL
stupid.
crazy stuff happens all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Right.
Exactly.
So that's where I'm at with this game. It's such a bummer. And you feel for those players. I mean, so many things. Bears should have won that challenge. I'll stand by that. Mike Pereira even, made a case for that. They probably should have ruled it incomplete initially.
The big completion.
The big complete, right.
Yeah.
So these are all the things, like there were a lot of things that happened in that game that just like could have gone another way. And that's every game, right? That's every game. So I'm ready to turn the page. I'm ready to focus on the Minnesota Vikings. I think you want to see more progress from your offense this week, but good luck with Brian Flores coming to town.
For real. So yeah, this is something we circled at the beginning of the year. Was how does Caleb Williams handle Brian Flores and his exotic pressure schemes? Because Brian Flores brings pressure and he brings it a lot of different ways. I believe Caleb Williams called him the king of cover zero, which was pretty good, which is basically like an all out blitz. You're leaving your cornerbacks on islands to do their jobs and everybody else is coming. And I liked what I heard from Matt Eberflus about how the team is going to combat this. Obviously, they need a plan, but they said they want their plan to give Caleb Williams clear answers. So many things in the NFL, like choice routes with wide receivers. A wide receiver is given certain coverage, and he has 3 different things that he can do to break off that route, right? And obviously, you need to be well-versed in all of those different options. My takeaway from listening, from reading between the lines was we want to simplify things so that Caleb Williams sees one thing and he knows this is my one answer, whether it's a hot route, whether it's a check to another play, so that he's not guessing. He's not wondering, okay, I can do A, B, or C. It's always A. Now, putting that in practice is going to be another story. But I think Caleb Williams, has done pretty well with post-snap recognition. Like that growth throughout the year, I think has improved. There were times when he was challenged, when, he threw interceptions because maybe he missed something, he didn't recognize something. I think that's improved as the year's gone on. This is going to be probably his biggest test of the year so far.
By a long shot. And I think there's obviously the takeaways are a thing. The scoring defense is a thing. The sacks, it's a thing. Like it's every category for this Minnesota Vikings defense. And obviously, I think we saw the offensive line play a lot better. Having Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright back in there certainly helped. But it's going to be really tough this week. And I'm curious, Alex, I know you mentioned that you watched the All-22. What did you notice offensively from this kind of new look? I know it's the same offense, but it's a new look, sort of Thomas Brown designed offense.
Well, number one was motion. That's something that the Bears had not been doing enough, is getting guys in motion. It gives Caleb Williams a clue as to whether or not they're playing man or playing zone. It sets up good matchups. It can set up numbers in a blocking scheme. So that was big. We also saw a lot of quick answers for Caleb Williams so that he could get the ball out of his hands quickly. That is going to be huge again, bringing it back to the Vikings, right? How do you combat a really aggressive, strong pass rush? Guys getting in your face, get the ball out of your hands really quickly. So that was something that we saw last week that worked. That was with some designed plays, and that was also just in the rhythm of the offense, right? The pop pass that we saw, I believe it was to DJ Moore. A lot of the screen passes to DJ Moore. A lot of the quick outs. Those are ways in which Thomas Brown is saying we are, designing things to get the ball out of Caleb Williams' hands quickly. Another thing that was really noticeable to me, Caleb Williams, the designed runner. So Caleb Williams said today that on Wednesday that Thomas Brown, didn't encourage him to scramble more. He kind of encouraged him to play more freely, which led to some of those scrambles when he's recognizing, oh, hey, it's man-to-man defense downfield, and I got nothing but green grass in front of me. Nobody's open. I'm just taking off, right? which worked really great. But then he really did design, in my opinion, just anecdotally watching the game, a lot more designed runs and in some key moments, on third and fourth downs and stuff. So that was big. And that can slow down a pass rush. If guys need to read a key, whoa, is it a handoff or is he keeping it? Like, that's something that the Bears really haven't put on tape before. And now that it is on tape, maybe the Vikings have to think about that for a beat. One more thing that I want to highlight from Thomas Brown and differences, and this is something that Matt Eberflus pointed to, the creativity. We saw Rome Odunze in the backfield a ton, like split next to a running back. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't really work. Like Rome Odunze was sometimes responsible for blocking a guy that, like, the pursuit rusher kind of whiffed. Sometimes he was a lead blocker and it was okay. And that's fine to try something, be creative, and have it not work. Now it'll be interesting to, how do they iterate off of that? And this is something that I think Shane Waldron did a decent job of, honestly, especially with the 3 tight end, the 2 tight end personnel groups. Is what are you going to do next with Rome Odunze in there? Is he going to get some handoffs? Is he going to, are there going to be some nifty motions that lead to wheel routes for Rome Odunze or something? I'm really excited to see, okay, can they shore up the deficiencies and can they turn that into a strength? Or do they say, hey, this didn't really work, we're going to try something else, and maybe it'll be something new next week that we haven't seen? So the creativity factor, I thought, was also on display with Thomas Brown, but a lot of little things. Again, some of it worked, some of it didn't work, but it's all encouraging because it's like, okay, finding what works, finding what doesn't, challenging in different ways. And then just specifically with DJ Moore, like the Bears struggled to get DJ Moore the ball at times over the past few weeks. Those screens, those motions, all of those things were like highly designed ways to get the ball into DJ Moore's hands. And once they did, it turned into yards after the catch. It turned into good stuff. So that's a way of like, okay, how can we very deliberately manufacture yards for DJ Moore? We saw that as well.
Yeah. And I loved kind of seeing sort of the biggest thing for me, I guess, watching the game was that the ball was consistently being put in the hands of your best players. And that's like Cole Kmet, welcome back. Like there were, obviously, I think you could get him even more involved, but not everyone can get the ball. So I loved seeing that. That was huge for me. I also think, like, in the first, 9 weeks of the season, I really felt like, oh, DeAndre Swift's on the field, they're going to run it. Like, oh, Roschon Johnson's on the field, they're going to run it. Like, oh, no one's in the backfield, they're going to throw it. There was just more disguising of what they were doing. And that probably ties into some of your creativity conversation, right? And that's obviously really encouraging, because this defense that's coming in, like, yeah, they're really talented, but it's a smart defense. And it's, I know we'll get into this a little bit more on Friday when we really dive into this matchup against the Vikings, but I covered Brian Flores the 3 seasons, or for 2 seasons when he was in Miami. I covered the last 2 when he had back-to-back winning seasons for the first time in 20 years for the Miami Dolphins. So very familiar with the whole Brian Flores, personality. And obviously there's been a lot of negativity that's been tied to that, because I think one side of that story has gotten out. And I personally have been, from the beginning, just a big Brian Flores fan. And he's a really, really, really smart football coach. And, I think a lot of people right now are talking about, in Chicago, they want a football coach. They want someone who's going to hold people accountable and not always be the nicest guy in the room. And, like, let me tell you something, like, that's going to be Brian Flores.
Yeah.
He holds people accountable. So anyway, that's all a side note to say that, this is a really smart defense. So I think with the Bears incorporating more creativity and disguises in their offense is something that could really work to their advantage. And I listened to a little bit of Brian Flores' press conference today, and he was really complimentary of what the Bears did on offense last week, basically saying, like, it's even still too early for us to pick up on tendencies of, what they're going to do when. So that is also something that could really help out the Bears here on Sunday. And I love seeing Caleb. You talked about the designed runs or even the non-design runs where he, can take off and go. His vision is really cool to watch. And I think when he's confident and he's comfortable, like you see him just like getting that vibe. And he is a special player. And we got to see a little bit more of that this past weekend. Alex, we are doing something very fun today. We are debuting a new segment, and we need a jingle. We need like a
that's it. That's the jingle. Clip that off, Edgar. There's the jingle.
We'll have Edgar work on that. It's time for the vibe check. Vibe check. Vibe check. It's the vibe check. Okay, that's our jingle.
That's it. Okay. We got it.
So basically what we're going to do here, I think we'll do it on Wednesdays, which is fun as we're kind of trying to figure out our rhythm here on the Charter podcast. We're going to go through a couple of areas of the Bears, right? Some subjects, and we're going to just take a little vibe check, take the temperature, So let's start here. I think this transitions nicely from kind of what we were just talking about. What's your vibe on Caleb Williams' development and progress right now?
Vibe check on Caleb Williams. I'm just steady. I'm solid. I'm steady.
Okay.
No worries. Going into this year, we knew it was going to be bumpy. We knew it was going to be roller coaster. Went through some down weeks. Didn't look good. And you just got to kind of accept it and say, okay, here it is.
Yeah.
These are the bad weeks. And what did he do? He responded, and I thought he looked much better against the Packers. Was it perfect? No. There are still some issues where, it looks like DJ Moore might be open and could have Caleb Williams thrown the ball. Yes, he decides to take off. It still turns into a positive play. So you're not super upset. But, okay, was that a missed opportunity? There are maybe a few missed opportunities here and there. I still think he is not putting the ball in harm's way, which is something he is excellent at. I think the processing picked back up again, kind of right where he left off, where he was making the quick throws. He seemed to be making good decisions. So I'm not getting too high. I'm not getting too low, but I feel good. I feel good about where Caleb Williams is at in his development, especially when you look at the end of the game and in the 6-minute drive for the Bears to score a touchdown going into half. This is kind of a foil of what we hadn't seen in the past, where in the clutch moments, Caleb Williams is playing his best football. And that is exactly what you want. That is not what we had been seeing. That is specifically what Matt Eberflus had said. Matt Eberflus during the combine basically said, whoever our quarterback is, we want him to be super clutch in 2-minute and fourth quarter. And you looked at what Justin Fields did in 2-minute and fourth quarter, and that was the moment I knew Justin Fields is not going to be the quarterback for the Chicago Bears anymore. When Matt Eberflus said those words. Caleb Williams is doing those things. Like, again, is he perfect? Absolutely not. Does he still have a ton to learn? Absolutely, yes, he does. But you're seeing him elevate his play in the clutch moments. You're seeing him elevate his teammates' play. And, you're seeing him do things that put his team in a position to win when it matters. So I feel, what I say, solid.
Steady. You said steady.
Steady and solid.
Steady. Steady, solid. I like it. I think my vibe on Caleb Williams' development is, what's my vibe? My vibe is room temp. I'm room temp. I still have some excitement about what he could be. I definitely feel better this week than I did last week. But that bar was very, very low. And I think obviously the change in offensive coordinator was welcomed and needed. Like, it was very clear from the beginning that offense looked different on Sunday. So yeah, I'm room temp. Not a good thing, not a bad thing. I just am like, I'm patient. And I was really pleased to see the offensive line play better last week. Of course, we know the tackles came back. And I just want to keep seeing it go the right direction, right? Because we got really excited after Jacksonville. We're like, oh boy, he's here. He's arrived, And so I'm protecting myself a little bit here because there are going to be ebbs and flows, and you want to be able to see, sort of what he can do moving forward. And it's not going to get easier. So that's why I'm room temp, trying to keep my emotions very even keeled, as I say,
Love
you say,
it.
steady. Solid. Okay. What is your vibe check on Thomas Brown as the offensive coordinator? And this ties in, I guess, to our last.
I'm kind of hopeful. I got some hopeful vibes where I was encouraged. There were things that I liked. We kind of just went over it. Some stuff worked, some stuff less successful. But now it's like, okay, how do you iterate? The vibes were high on Shane Waldron for a time when things didn't look good, and then things looked better, and then things really bottomed out. This is a week-to-week league, like very truly. And, a lot changes week to week. Can Thomas Brown improve? Can he limit the deficiencies? The pre-snap penalties are still a major issue. I don't want to gloss over that. We talked over it again. I mean, just way too many. The illegal shifts, the motions, no bueno. So it's not all sunshine and roses with the Bears offense still, but I'm hopeful and I'm encouraged.
I like it. I'm energized. That's my vibe check with Thomas Brown. That shot of him in the booth, like, let's effing go, like that. I needed that. Like, I needed that moment to see, like, and we got that earlier in the week when he had his press conference. I've gotten to know him over the course of the year, just covering the team, in and out of Hallis Hall. And this is a guy that brings the energy, the juice, and we saw it really authentically, right? With that shot of him on Sunday. So I'm energized. I'm excited. I think he's really embracing an opportunity, and it's not an easy situation. You have a rookie quarterback. You're using someone else's offense. You don't have an off season. So he's jumping in kind of when the kettle is hot, and I hope he continues to make the most of it. Okay, what is your vibe check? Vibe check. What is your vibe check on the run defense?
Ooh, low. Vibes are low. If we're thinking about, like, very basically, vibes are high and vibes are low. Vibes are low on the run defense. Did they come through with some clutch plays in some moments? I mean, DeMarcus Walker's stop on the 2-point conversion, notable. There are chunks of that game where they did a better job bottling up Josh Jacobs of others. But, like, that's kind of, obviously a guy isn't going to gash you for 6 yards every time. Too many times throughout the entire year, it just hasn't looked the same. Even with Andrew Billings. Without Andrew Billings, it looks worse. Even with Andrew Billings in there, it wasn't looking great. Again, like, the different guys are stepping in at different moments and splashing and flashing, but it just hasn't been consistent. And this has now become a week-to-week thing where it's like, hey, what happened? This was one of the best run defenses in the NFL. The personnel is almost unchanged. What happened?
Hold on. I beg to differ. Jaquan Brisker and Andrew Billings. I mean, There you go. Yes. Those are two of your biggest run stoppers.
You're right. Jaquan Brisker's absence doesn't help, but I think Elijah Hicks has actually played really well. This guy might have, like, the bench man of the year, the six man of the year award for the Bears right now. So yes, you're right. They are missing a few key guys in there. Whereas last year, right, the injuries were, like, on the perimeter, that they were missing all those secondary dudes for a long time, and that really hurt the pass defense. But vibes are low. Bears need to find answers. They have a lot of really good running backs on the schedule coming up. Aaron Jones is a guy who has gashed the Bears so many times. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, serious running backs. Christian McCaffrey is coming up. So, I mean, they have serious running backs coming up on their schedule. And it's something like, again, vibes are low for me right now with the run.
SOS. Okay. I will say this. the Bears only gave up 106 rushing yards. And that's 76 of those were Josh Jacobs. So I actually think they did a decent job this past weekend, other than that really long drive that just they ran it down their throats. It's concerning. I think you want it to be better. What is my vibe? I didn't answer the question. Vibe check. Concerned. My vibe is concerned. But also concerned about really like what? Right now, doesn't it just feel like this year is about Caleb? Like, it's going to take a bloody miracle for you to make the postseason. Yeah. So you want to see trajectory with Caleb. Your defense, it's gonna have holes in it because of the injuries, and because if the offense ever like is struggling, like they can only do so much. Mm-hmm. So I'm feeling concerned. I'm less like upset about it, I think, than I would have been 5 weeks ago when you still felt like everything was in front of you. Totally. So I'm concerned. I think it's not something that I'm going to get super worked up about right now because there's so many other big problems, it feels like, and the Bears need to just figure out how to win games in the fourth quarter. So
I'll throw another name at you. If you're looking for growth because the Bears are 4 or 6 and not going to make the playoffs at this point, that seems like a pipe dream. In terms of the growth department, how about Zach Pickens? Is this an opportunity for Zach Pickens to really get some experience? Because he's going to have the opportunity. And he wasn't just playing nose tackle last week. I mean, they had him sliding over to play a little 3-tech. They did some shifties where Gervon Dexter moves to play nose guard or nose tackle. And then Pickens was playing that 3-tech. So grab the bull by the horn, Zach Pickens.
Yeah.
Let's see if you can show something, if you can take that leap like Gervon Dexter was doing earlier this year.
Let's get a little vibe check on the Bears pass rush. There was none on Sunday. It was pathetic. So sorry, I'm taking over for you. Let me get your vibe check, Alex, because I got a rant. I'm gonna rant.
I'm gonna double down on low lately. Similarly, some guys are making certain plays in certain moments, but it's just not consistent enough. Opposite Montez Sweat. Montez Sweat is getting a lot of attention, obviously, right? And
I'm over that conversation.
You're over that conversation?
We'll get to it, but I'm over that. Continue.
Sure. I mean, right. He hasn't gotten home enough. Has he had the quote unquote pressures where you watch him flush a guy? Yes. Has he sped up the throws at times? Also, yes. But there haven't been enough of those game changing plays. The strip sacks, haven't seen that. DeMarcus Walker, again, flashes. Darrell Taylor, like, they're good rotational guys, but it seems like the Bears just have too many rotational guys and not enough game-changing guys. And their one game-changing guy hasn't changed the game enough. So it hasn't been great. And Flus had, and I still think does have, a knack for dialing up the blitz and having the blitzers get home. But that hasn't been as successful lately either. We've seen those blitzes get picked up recently, whether it's Kyler Gordon, whether it's a safety, a linebacker. Flus has continued to bring that pressure from time to time. It's just been less successful lately. So the pass rush, they got to get back in the lab. We've seen some stunts. We've seen them keep going to that NASCAR package where they'll bring an extra guy in. They'll like sub out the nose tackle and bring an extra pass rusher in. So they have like 4 legit pass rushers on the field at once. It hasn't worked. So again, Travis Smith, he's really creative. You want to talk about a creative coach? He's really good at devising those rush games. We'll see what they can cook up, but they got to get something. They got to get something to work because it has not been enough.
I am really disappointed in the production for Montez. You gave him the contract and it feels like, okay, you want to feel him. You need to feel him. I don't feel him in games. And that's frustrating. I understand that he's getting attention, but guess what? So is, Max Crosby. So is, all the great pass rushers get a ton of attention and they make plays. The numbers are not where you want them to be. And I know it's not always about the stat line, but like at some point it is, so that's kind of what's been so disappointing. And my vibe check I'm more mad about the vibe check about the pass rush than I am about the run defense, because what's almost more maddening to me about the pass rush than the missed field goal is that you let them go down the field and score with 3 minutes left in the game. Like, your defense is supposed to be the strength of this team. And like, honestly, the defense is what helped Matt Eberflus retain his job last offseason. So there was no pressure on Jordan Love. Obviously, listen, we can go back and forth about whether or not there was a catch, no catch, whatever. But the Christian Watson. But I'm just, that was what was so frustrating to me, is there was no pressure on Jordan Love, especially at the end of the game. And that's mad. My vibe is mad. I'm mad about the lack of pass rush. So that's where I stand there. Usually I would like to end this on a happy note, Alex, but I can't do that today because of the pass rush. And it's really, I know there are all the rotational guys that you mentioned, but Montez Sweat is supposed to be the, anchor of your whole system. Like, that's what that's supposed to be. And I just don't see 98 getting to the quarterback ever. And so it's frustrating. That's where I'm mad.
This could be a topic for a good deep dive. These are strings maybe we want to pull. What's going on? This could be a question for Travis Smith. Why has Montez Sweat struggled to get home this season when last season, dude was a menace?
Yeah.
I mean, last season they gave him the contract and he really played up to it. Yeah. It looked like the steal deal of a century.
And Matt Eberflus was asked this a couple of weeks ago about Montez, and he kind of alluded to he is getting more attention than anyone else, but right, you want to still see him pop. Great players make plays, bottom line. And you got him here, you acquired him, you signed him. He needs to be great. And it hasn't really looked that way so far this year. So,
you know what kind of reminds me of?
What?
When the Bears traded for Khalil Mack and he was dynamite for a year and then production tapered off. Now, obviously, it's like way too soon to compare that.
Yeah. Let's not go there yet.
But the Bears tried to get Robert Quinn next to Khalil Mack, and Robert Quinn was hurt. And then when Khalil Mack was gone, that's when Robert Quinn had his crazy season.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what the Bears do, but like, you want to have that Robert Quinn season with the Khalil Mack season, because then you're super cooking. And
there are going to be opportunities for this defense, for the Bears defense on Sunday too. Let's not put this lightly. I mean, I think Sam Darnold turns the ball over. He's kind of tapered off after his really hot start to the year. There are going to be opportunities to take the ball away and to get to the quarterback. So I would appreciate some of that on Sunday. Okay.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. There will be more opportunities. And you know what? The Bears did take advantage. Here's a happy note to end on.
Okay, thank you. Dear God, I was waiting for something. Okay.
The Bears played complimentary football for the first time in felt like a really, really long time on Sunday, right? Where Terrell Smith got that interception in the end zone. We talked about it. We talked about it. Whereas like Jordan Love is going to give them a chance to get an interception. What do the Bears do with it after the Bears had an interception of Drake May and did nothing with it, right? They legitimately, I believe, did not move the football at the 50-yard line. What did the Bears do on Sunday? They intercepted Jordan Love in the end zone, and then they burned nearly the rest of the clock in the second half to play a little make it, take it. That's complimentary football. That's winning football. It obviously did not result in a win.
They were so close.
They were so close. They were so close. But that is a winning formula. That's a recipe for success.
Right.
Can they do that again? And can they do more of that? You know,
I
they
think
had one interception.
yeah.
Can they get 2 takeaways this time? That'd be crazy.
Right. And they're going to need to score more than 19 points moving forward.
Yeah.
19 is greater than 3. So we're
Yes.
making progress.
Yes.
But yeah, it's got to continue to
touchdowns. You want to talk about progress?
And they scored in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Snaps. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
First quarter. Yeah.
Yes.
Field goal. Yeah.
So they're progress.
So this is progress. Alex Shapiro, we got to run, but this was a blast. Vibe check. I hope everyone likes it. We're going to get a real jingle. It's not going to be me singing
jingle.
though.
That has to be the jingle. We just have to clip that off and just drop it in. You just singing vibe check. I like the snaps that you were doing and whatever the do-do-dos you did right off the top. We got to get in the lab, find a way to put that all together because vibes are high. My vibes are off the charts on the vibe check jingle that you may have inadvertently put together on this podcast live right now.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm here for your entertainment and your entertainment only. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Charter Podcast with Alex Shapiro and Ruthie Polinsky. On Friday, we're going to preview the Vikings matchup with someone who is very familiar with that team. So we'll get into that on Friday. And next week it's Thanksgiving. Then it's a short week. Holy smokes. It's almost Thanksgiving. And it's wish we had more to be thankful for. I'm just kidding. That's for another therapy session next week. To our listeners, again, thank you so much. This is the Charter Podcast brought to you by St. Xavier University.